Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and I am the host of this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I am also a newly minted USA Today bestselling author of the novel Blank. I've created a whole community of book lovers around this podcast, a publishing company, reading retreats, a bookstore, and more. Learn more at zibbymedia.com or follow me on social at Zibby Owens or join the community at Zibby Readers. Allison Winn Scotch is back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to talk about Take Two, Birdie Maxwell. She actually just did an event at Zibby's bookshop about her book, which was very well attended. I saw all about it. And you can watch that if you'd like on our YouTube channel for the bookstore, youtube.com at Zibbyverse. Allison Winn Scotch is the New York Times bestselling author of 9 novels, including Cleo McDougall Regrets Nothing, In 20 Years, and Time of My Life. She lives in Los Angeles with her family and their 2 rescue dogs, Hugo and Mr. Peanut. Welcome, Allison. Thank you so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read.
Of course.
This time, Take Two, Birdie Maxwell. Congratulations.
I was thinking the last time we talked, I was huddled in a corner in my house, during COVID. It was a totally different ballgame, but anyway, it's good to see you again. Thank you for having me back.
You're a regular at Zibby's bookshop. It's awesome.
I am actually. It's right by me. I was just thinking while I was getting ready for this, if I wanted to retire, which I might want to do soon. And I was like, I'd like to open a bookstore, but actually there's already one in our neighborhood. So so I don't need to, but yes, we love that.
It is super fun. Maybe just do it a little further away.
I'm not doing it. Don't worry. I was like, what do I want to do next with my life? Anyway.
You're welcome to work in the bookstore, hang out.
This is a sidebar, but my daughter is starting to look for a job. She's 17. And I was like, she should go apply for a job there. So, yeah.
Should, yeah. Okay, well, the plot for this book is amazing. Love this whole idea. Take listeners through what this book is about.
Sure. So this is about America's sort of rom-com sweetheart who is canceled for reasons that probably aren't justified, but as tends to happen, doesn't really matter. So she slinks back to her hometown where she finds an anonymous love letter that an ex has sent her. And she decides to sort of recreate her own rom-com to win back America's adoration and sets out to find out who wrote it. So
amazing.
That's it.
And what was the spark of the idea? Where did this come from? If you know.
So this book went through many, many drafts. It just wasn't working. And then it finally did start working. But I realized maybe a third the way in, and I think authors sort of have these unconscious, latent ideas. I actually got an anonymous love letter in college. I came home for the summer and my mom handed me the mail because you got mail back then, because we're that old. And we required the U.S. Postal Service. And there was this flowery cursive written letter. And I remember at the time feeling like it was really creepy, but I think that must have stuck with me. So when we were doing this, over COVID, I think a lot of people, I rediscovered just joyous TV shows and movies because that was all I wanted to watch. Mm-hmm. So this was sort of my approach for something that's just a joyful book. Hopefully readers at night can sort of unwind with it, which is what I do, which I know, what you do with your reading and your work. So it's just sort of there to be joyful. Yeah. So that was the impetus of it.
It's great to produce entertainment. Essentially. Right?
Yeah, it's funny. We can get deeper into this or not, but I do think, particularly earlier in my career, I felt like I had to write something really weighty. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, or maybe just my priorities have shifted, I have watched literally a sitcom, a 30-minute sitcom every night since 2015. It just, it's my way to set aside whatever's happened in the day and just immerse myself in something fun. And I think there is something really beautiful about writing something that brings some people happiness. It doesn't have to be the Pulitzer, and I'm not in any way, I think rom-coms and romance can be brilliantly written, but I just mean this genre is often disparaged, why you never see them at the Oscars or whatever. And there's some real value in just bringing people joy.
I completely agree.
That's what I am here for.
Not to mention that a lot of people, that is what they want to read, especially in darker times, right? People want to be entertained. They want to escape.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a market for darker, bleaker books.
Mm-hmm.
More power to those authors. I mean, obviously I'll read thrillers and historical fiction, but I can't, me personally, have them be super heavy right now. It's just, I can't take it on. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So let's write things that make people happy.
I'm okay with dark memoirs because I know it
Yes.
happened. And that feels very inspiring to me.
Yes, I agree.
But dark for the sake of when you don't have to go there, I don't know.
And again, like there are obviously markets for that. It's just at this point in my life, my reading time is at night. So I'm in bed. And in fact, my husband made me watch this documentary the other night about some murder. And I was so like annoyed with him. I didn't want to watch it at night. I said, I only watch sitcoms at night. He's like, no, because he's like super into true crime. And then like we finished it and I was like, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Like, this is not what I want to like have in my, like arsenal as I'm like trying to drift off to sleep, which I can't even do half the time. So again, there is an audience for these darker books. More power to those authors who want to write them. But for me personally, as a reader and a writer, I do agree on memoir and I listen to them and I find them really compelling. Because then it's like you're rooting for that person who got out of it. Yeah, for sure.
Have you always had trouble sleeping?
I would say since like I had kids, which I think is pretty normal. Is that, are you in the same?
I mean, when I'm really stressed, I wake up really early, but I can always fall asleep probably because I'm just so overtired.
So you have so much going on. Yeah. I think, and I remember talking to my doctor about this, that like it often happens with women and when they have kids and their hormones shift or their anxiety goes up or whatever. So I am not a great sleeper, but I really love to sleep. So it's, in fact, I said to my husband last night, like in my dream world, I'm like nocturnal. I'd go to bed at 2 and if it were like socially acceptable, I'd wake up at like 9:30 or 10 and just, that would be my schedule, but it's not socially acceptable. So I'm asleep at like midnight. So it's fun.
So you've had a whole career of writing, right? You've managed to do this dream that so many people have, where you've really kept this going. You've innovated. You've, shifted with the times. I mean, how do you do this? What is the secret? And I know you said, you're feeling differently about what types of books, but even just the process and the craft, like all of that. How do you keep that going?
So it's interesting, certainly in this moment where I do think a lot of authors are very tired. And I'm not related to sleep. I just think a lot of us are feeling a little fried. I have been very lucky to have almost a 20-year career writing novels, which just feels bananas. I think that, there are a couple things. One is, I think that you really need to have the ability to step away from it when you can, even if it's in brief moments. I think one of the reasons that Birdie was so hard for me to write is I had no turnaround time from filing my last book. And I am somebody who really just needs to just not do anything to sort of refill my creative well. So in the past, I've always granted myself that time. And, I'm lucky I'm in a 2-income household. I know that is not viable for everyone, but the only way that I feel like I'm capable of writing good books and sustaining this is by giving myself a break. 2, I think you just have to really develop a very thick skin. I have sort of changed up how, like, going on Goodreads, I know you just recently had a bad experience there, gives me such anxiety. Like I have a physical reaction to it. And I'm not like an anxious person, but like for my last book, I was realizing that like I was having the same reaction as like when I would go on and check like election Twitter. You can feel like a physical reaction. So for me, it has really been about having perspective over what this is sort of bringing into my life book, sort of the success of the book, but also like, I'm lucky. I have like a wonderful relationship with my kids. Like, we're going through the college process. Like there are other things going on in my life that I try to take a step back and be like, okay, at the end of the day, this is a career. It's a job and it feels very personal because it's public facing, but it is a career. It's just, I don't just mean to minimize it. Like it's a job, but, and it's a very fortunate job to have, but I don't know. I don't want to make my whole life about it. And so I think that has allowed me to have that longevity. Well, also, I will say this is my 10th book. I have 2 more contracted. I am pretty burned out. So, thus opening a bookstore, which I'm not going to do, but maybe I'll go work at Zibby's books. I think I would love that. So,
you should totally do it. When you sold the other 2, Was it just like on concept, or like how much do you know about what
So
those
I
are?
did. I signed another 2-book deal with Berkeley. We haven't actually announced it yet, but
Congratulations.
I know. I think we're going to be doing it soon. They were debating if I want to finish it before we announce it. It's like 2/3 the way done, and in fact, it's called The Insomniacs, and it's
Oh,
about other people who can't sleep.
perfect.
Yeah, I was literally like trying to come up with an idea, and like in the middle of the night, I'm like, why am I writing about this? Like half the women my age cannot sleep. So, I feel like, and I mean, you speak to a lot of authors. I wonder if other people feel this way. Like every time I file a book, I'm like, I'm done. I don't have another idea. Like nothing is ever going to come to me. I'm just whatever. And then eventually I take that time for myself and I go live that life that is so important to me. And I hang out with my kids or I argue with my kids or whatever you're doing. And something eventually sort of sparks like that need to write, which, I think you're in the same boat. And I'm sure that a lot of other authors who you speak with are. So we sold it on concept and it's about, I don't know, 70% written. And having taken like 6 months off, not off, but like between actually writing books, I mean, I'm doing other things in between. I did feel like ready to return and actually write properly, like in the way that I know how. So,
I mean, it sounds to me like you know yourself really well. Like, I need to do this at night to calm down. I need this. I've thought about this. Like, you're very
you.
self-aware.
Thank you very much for that compliment. That is like a really nice compliment. I do think I know myself well. I definitely like learned some things during COVID. Everybody's always been out of the house usually. And I had a difficult time. Like I realized we've all sort of done these surveys. Like I am a extroverted introvert and I'd always considered myself an extrovert, but like I need my downtime. I need that sitcom at night. Don't make me watch your stupid like documentary about like murders. So, I mean, whatever, people love them. It's just not for me. So, I mean, look, I'm 50. Like, I would hope that at a certain point, you do sort of have to do that, like self-reflective work where, you start to, and I don't mean this in any like morbid way at all, but like look at the back half of your life. And my son's in college and my daughter's applying. And like, I don't know, like, I want to live a happy life. So that is sort of whether it's with signing book deals or not signing book deals or whatever it is, I just want to make sure that I'm content with it. And, I listen, as a lot of people do, to SmartLess, and I've heard them say several times, like, if you would say no to something tomorrow, don't say yes to it in 3 weeks, because then it's going to come up and like, you're going to be like, oh my God, why did I say yes? And I feel like I'm trying to employ that, not like literally, but just in general. Like, what am I doing? Why am I saying yes to things I don't want to do? And I know that you've, written about that as well, feeling overwhelmed and putting up those boundaries. Sorry if you hear my dog snoring in the background.
Oh, no, it's okay. My dog is
I know, I love your black lab.
she's on the couch there.
Oh yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
They're living the life.
Oh my
Non-insomniacs.
God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
An insomniac with a dog who only sleeps. No, I mean, look, we all try to fit everything in. I feel like I just am so tired. I don't want to do anything after a certain time of day. That's why, like, I've started
Yes.
having events at like 8 a.m., like we had the Zibby Awards at the store at 11 a.m. Like when I first launched it, they were at like 8 in Brooklyn,
Yeah, see, I still want to be asleep by then, but like last night, my daughter had left something to the last minute and whatever, like their school, like a state basketball game. She came home at like 9 and came into our room where I was in bed trying to watch my sitcom. And she's like, okay, I need your help with this. And I was like, obviously I helped her. I was so irritated because like that is my time. I'm like, this is my relaxation time, so I do try to put up those boundaries both with my family and with my work, but it's not always successful.
No.
So, I mean, you have more kids than I do. So, and I only have one at home now. So it's easier.
When you were writing this book, did you worry about any ex-boyfriends reading it or wondering if they were mentioned, or did you send it to them? Are you in touch with them?
I didn't worry about them reading it because it's not related to them at all. I am friendly with a lot of them in terms of like, I'm not somebody who carries around grudges. Like, I just think it's so toxic to like, it drains you more than it needs to. So to answer your question, I'm not worried. I highly doubt any of them read my work anyway. I mean, at this point, like 10 books in, it's a miracle. Like if my family reads them. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like whatever. Given that none of them, I assume, did write me that anonymous love letter in college, I don't think that any of them could see themselves in it. I mean, you're always taking sort of past feelings and putting them into your work, but I'm not somebody who is going to replicate an experience really on the page, particularly 10 books. And I would hope that I've sort of got, like, I don't have that many anecdotes of romantic calamities at this point. But yeah, so I do think back fondly to most of them, not all of them, but I will say I love, whether it's movie, TV, book, I do love a second chance rom-com. I'm a very nostalgic person, which is maybe why I'm generous to some of my exes. Like, whatever, you weren't great, but that doesn't mean you're a terrible person. Although sometimes it does. So I do have one or two who I think are terrible. So yeah, but I don't really write about them.
And what about going back to your hometown? Are you from LA?
No, I'm not from LA. I'm actually from Seattle, where it's not in this book, but I've included that in a few settings in the books. So it's funny, like I used to live in New York and all my books were set there, and then more of them have been set here since moving to LA. So my parents no longer live in Seattle, so I don't really have a reason to visit. So I would go up and do some book events now, but like sort of post-COVID, people aren't doing as many, and that's totally fine by me. So, but my high school friends are still there, and I actually have some college friends there. So it was a great place to grow up.
In terms of being canceled, like Birdie, is there anything that you feel like maybe you should have gotten canceled for, but you got away with?
Oh my God. No, I try to be extremely meticulous online, not just because I mean, I don't think I really share any controversial views, although, we've seen recently, I know you've experienced with the anti-Semitism. Every time I think about posting something that might in any way be sort of misconstrued, I play out all the different iterations of like what the responses are going to be and if my stress level is worth taking that on. So, and a lot of times the answer is just no. Like I feel very stridently about a lot of things, but I don't want to deal with the incoming. And so I'm very outspoken on Instagram about politics, about reproductive health, about voting. And I do feel like if somebody wants to cancel me for something that for me is so clearly sort of black and white. I mean, I don't even know how you could be canceled for that because I really think it's the right thing to do. But, I do see, and I'm sure you experience this as well, the thing that upsets me online is, I mean, sort of the politics of it notwithstanding, like authors being shitty to other authors or dragging somebody else's work publicly. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you read a ton, I read a ton. I would never publicly disparage somebody.
No.
Ever. And that's sort of when I'm like, that is like a systemic problem with you. And that's when I'm like out. It takes a lot for me to unfollow someone or, to sort of end something. That is when I'll do it. And I really try not to post anything negative other than like, look, I hate Trump. So like, I might post something about that, but that's sort of my line. I feel like you must see that all the time. Like in your comment, like people just like keep it to yourself.
I can't believe when I see authors or people tagging authors and saying things badly about their books or people. I mean, look, the country is so divided right now. It's horrific. And it somehow has been sanctioned to be mean. And I do not agree with that.
That's exactly right. That's what it is. I feel like I'm not a mean person. I mean, I have very strong opinions about things, but I am not mean. And like, I find mean people like so, like not even, obviously snark is one thing, but I feel like snark has been elevated. Like people now no longer differentiate between what is snarky and what is mean. And I realized this very early on Twitter, where sort of in the early days, like we would all just post like snarky things about celebrities. And then it occurred to me, this was again, like very early days where we were sort of naive about it, that like some of them might be saying it and it could be hurting their feelings because famous people have feelings too. And I think that people also don't realize that authors might see some of the like really mean things they say about them. So I realized that on Twitter and I was like, okay, I'm out. Like, I don't care if somebody's freaking, famous. there's no need for me to say something mean that is going to hurt their feelings. And so I don't know. It bums me out sometimes to see people I know just saying audaciously rude things to other people. And it's not like about, a policy. It's about a person. And I just don't understand it. I just don't. So, and I know that people have said that publicly rude things to you and on Goodreads and whatever. I mean, same with me. And I just don't understand it. Like, I just feel like it's a reflection of that person and it really doesn't have anything to do with me.
It's true. Let's believe that. Unless you and I are both terrible people.
You know what? Like, well, the reason I believe that is because if somebody feels comfortable being that rude online and they know that people are going to read whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
Like, they do it for like the serotonin boost or whatever it is that like somebody's going to like their snark.
Yep.
That is very sad to me.
I think people are desperate for a sense of control right now. I think people feel like the world is just spiraling, which it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you really let yourself go there, you just won't get out of bed in the morning. So I don't know. I think some people get pleasure from hurting other people, and that's just sick and terrible. And I think other people have been swayed by thinking it's okay. And so they join in, piling on to the rudeness and the hatred and death threats or whatever it is, which is not okay, obviously.
Right.
But it's unacceptable. So yeah.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So to answer your question, I have never been canceled, thank goodness, but I am also extremely, like, if they sat in my living room and heard my husband and me talking, maybe I would. And I don't mean like because I'm saying controversial things, but I'm sure other people would. But like, it's okay to have feelings in the privacy of your own home or with your friends or your group chats or whatever, but you do not need to put them on blast. And I feel like that has gotten lost in the pervasiveness of social media. Like, but I think our generation gets that, like loud and proud Gen Xer, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, 10 out of 10 times, I will love the posts that like are sharing cute dogs and like joyful things. And I'm not going to like the negative ones.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Oh my gosh, probably the same advice that I had back when we first talked. I mean,
you have to change it this time.
I don't remember what I said.
You can't do that. That's a hack I will not accept.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, and this does sort of circle back to a lot of I think the reason that I've had longevity is I think it is really important to not have an ego in this industry. Like, if your ego is bigger than your desire to be a great writer, you are going to run into roadblocks all the time. Like, your editor is going to, so a good example is Birdie Maxwell. I rewrote this book from scratch, like starting at 0 5 times. Like, I had to throw out 5 different drafts.
Oh my gosh.
And if I had resisted, the final book wouldn't have worked. And it was really, really hard to do that every time. But And by the way, again, as I said, this is my 10th book. So like, ostensibly I should know how to get it right, but you just don't. You start over every time. I mean, I do have like a somewhat clearer sense of how to write a good book now, but whether it's getting constructive criticism from your editor, from your readers, from just not being defensive when like your editor is like, cut this, it's exposition. And you're like, but I really like this sentence. Guess what? It doesn't matter. So I just think if you resist when people are trying to help you, it's going to be a very short-lived career.
I think that's great advice. And I've, by the way, never gotten that from any author yet.
Oh, really?
Really. And that's really, really good advice.
That's so interesting to me because it's just like, I just feel like it is the umbrella under which everything else falls.
No, you're right.
If you isolate yourself because you believe that like your draft or your idea or whatever is absolutely the right thing and other people are telling you it's not, you're not going to be correct. I mean, not in every situation. I should say, like, there are things where I have argued with my editor, but generally speaking, I just think that's what,
Yeah, no, being collaborative with your whole publishing team and,
correct.
Then when you have something you feel strongly about, they'll listen.
That's it. That's exactly right. That's like, if they know that this cover is going to be more marketable, okay, that's not my expertise.
Yeah.
Like, go with God. But, if there's something that I really feel strongly about, then that is the time that I will wield that argument power, whatever it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Oh my gosh, I'm hoping to see you in LA in a few weeks.
Yes, yes. I'm so excited.
I love, you're out here all the time. So thank you so much for having me, and good luck with your own release.
Good luck with
What a
yours.
climb.
See you on the other side.
See you on the other side, Zibby. It's good to see you.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social at Zibby Owens and at Zibby Readers.